The centrist President Macron came in second. The far right, that was feared to be the potential winners, they came in third place. They've cried about it. And the left-wing coalition have won a historic victory. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of international roundup here this morning as we move ahead and over time. You may have noticed over the last, couple months, we've tried to include more international news, often like a little quick hit in the main show. There has been so much going on over the last week or two internationally that, I had a hard time picking just one story. So instead, I'm just going to, mention a few of the headlines that have crossed my radar that I think are worth knowing and worth looking into. And, we've had questions about, like, why talk about international issues? What does it matter what workers are up to in Mexico or Africa? And for me, I really do believe in internationalism. I believe that workers of the world have more in common with each other than we do with the bosses in our respective countries. If you think about the power that we have in our relationship to the economy and to production and to survival, I really believe that. I believe that most working people have more in common. And frankly, we all share the same home, right? Planet Earth. We're all on this rock together, and our survival is all tied together, ultimately. What happens across the world does have an impact here, just as certainly what happens here has an impact elsewhere. So I think for those reasons, it's interesting. It's worth paying attention to. And also think that we as working people can learn from what's happening and what other people are doing. How do other people struggle for their rights? What wins are, workers winning elsewhere? What defeats are workers experiencing elsewhere, right? What could we anticipate here? What's working, what's not working? All those things are relevant, I think. And so, I think it is important, even though we are focused on the American South. We are obviously an Alabama talk show. Alabama's our home, our bread and butter. But it is worth paying attention to what workers of the world are doing. So the first story was that the Labor Network for a Ceasefire actually hosted some Palestinian trade unionists this past week for a webinar. And the Labor for a Ceasefire Network is a coalition of labor unions. Many unions have joined this network at this point. So I wanted to put that out there. The webinar has been recorded. So if you were interested, you can find that. One of the biggest stories internationally that I've seen is in France. They held a huge election recently. The president had called snap elections. The centrist President Macron, his party came in second. The far right, that was feared to be the potential winners, they came in third place. They've cried about it. It's pretty hilarious that they got their butt kicked and they're crying about it. And the left-wing coalition, the Popular Front, the new Popular Front, they have won a historic victory. So it's going to be interesting to see what plays out there, because right now there are more and more unions who are stepping up and saying, if we don't get a government, workers need to hit the streets. So there is some intrigue there as to whether or not there will be, strikes and massive demonstrations there in France to pressure Macron into, allowing this leftist coalition government. They clearly won the elections. They had the most votes. But, the governmental systems work a little differently. And so, we'll see what happens, but keep your eyes peeled there for France. France has a long history of working class militancy. You know, let's just be real. I mean, people in France are a lot more willing to go to the streets for any number of issues. They've been in the streets all year fighting back against a potential raising of the retirement age. So, you know, folks have already been practicing their activism skills. And so we'll see what happens there. But that was, for me, at least, reassuring to see. As tomorrow is Bastille Day, July 14th, it was pretty cool to see that the far right did, you know, eat dirt in terms of their electoral outcomes, especially after so much was made about them potentially leading the polls and all that. So some potentially good news coming out of France. Love to hear it. Moving over to Asia, there is a huge strike in South Korea. We've talked a little bit about it previously on the show, but workers at Samsung Electronics are on strike. You can find some more information. Reuters put out a pretty good article about that. But there's an indefinite strike happening with Samsung Electronics. Of course, that could impact the global market. And it's interesting, you know, I can't help but think about some of the South Korean companies that exist here in Alabama and how anti-union they are. So I would love to just find out more. It's something that I'm going to do a deeper dive on, this Samsung Electronics workers strike in South Korea. I also saw from Reuters a report that the workers' union in Walmart in Chile has launched a strike. I was not aware that any Walmart workers were unionized in the country of Chile, but it turns out they are. And the negotiations have been breaking down, and so it's a report that about 75 supermarkets are going to be closed because of the strike. Another 82 will operate partially, and we'll see. We don't know how long the strike's going to last, but it involves over 14,000 workers. And I wanted to lift that up because, as we know, Walmart has fought super, super hard to keep unions out here in the United States, and I can only imagine everywhere else. So sending our solidarity to those workers down in Chile. And moving over to Africa, there has been a lot of strike activity in Nigeria, which is such a huge country and a populous country. And it's my understanding that the unions there are meeting with the president in a push for a new minimum wage. So we'll see if there's any progress there and if that will kind of calm things down. But, you know, lots of activities happening with working people across the globe. Unions are seeming to fight back in a lot of places. Unions are really playing a pivotal role in elections and in politics more broadly. So just a few international stories wanted to throw your way.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.